When I was a teenager, I kept secrets from my parents. Shocking, I know. But the kinds of secrets that I kept are ones that no parent would ever want their child to keep from them. My parents had absolutely no idea that I was experiencing serious harm, specifically experiencing abuse and assault by my current dating partner, and a lot of other secondary consequences, bullying at school, you name it. But I kept it all to myself. However, the warning signs were there, and I do believe that today, had my parents simply been a little bit more educated on these topics, or perhaps watched this video, they might have been able to better support me, and their intervention might have changed my entire life. I'm Ashley Bendixson, and I'm super happy that you decided to hop on this video with me today. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're not new, welcome back, of course. And in this video, I'm going to try to give you a very condensed masterclass on unhealthy teen dating. Not only will I try to give you everything you could possibly need to know to be aware of this issue and know how to talk to your teen about healthy relationships, and also foster a relationship with them so that they do come to you when harm might be occurring. But also, I'm linking below this video an awesome ebook that I'm so proud of. It's about 12 pages long, and this is a comprehensive yet compact guide to this issue. So if you're watching and you run out of time, or you watch this whole video and you love the content, that's a nice little summary for you. So let's get right into it. Now, just a little bit of background on me and my story. I started dating when I was 14, and my parents, while they had strict rules around dating, were okay with me having this boyfriend where I just kind of saw him at school and he would call the house. I'm gonna date myself, but I remember waiting for his phone call every night and taking the revolutionary cordless phone into my room. I was so happy. I had zero complaints. And everything in that relationship was great until everything changed. I started to deal with a lot of harmful dynamics, really problematic behaviors by this boyfriend behind closed doors. And things got so bad that it really impacted me as a student and as a teenager. Dealing with something like abuse and assault causes a lot of negative emotions. I was struggling with my self-esteem, my self-confidence, and also my mental health. I went from being a generally, bubbly, outgoing, quirky kid who was great in school to suddenly being so distracted and consumed and hurt by this relationship that I was experiencing anxiety, depression, turning to a lot of unhealthy coping tools. I had really disordered eating habits. My grades started to plummet. My life just kind of turned upside down because I was growing detached from myself. Now, what my parents saw, to kind of put it simply, was pretty much just problematic behavior. They saw their teenager being a teen, being rebellious, being disappointing, causing fights, being moody. But all of that was a secondary manifestation and a consequence that was born out of what I was hiding. And so that was kind of my experience. Like I said, my parents didn't know what to look for. And throughout my relationship, when I was in high school, there were times where I thought maybe I should try to talk to someone. But those thoughts were quickly shut down because in my heart, I believed, one, no one could possibly understand. This felt like something that was so unique to me that even if I tried to explain it, it wouldn't land right. Like, I understood my situation and it's no use trying to tell anyone else. And at the same time, I was afraid I would get in trouble. I would have to tell my parents that I broke rules to sneak out and see this boyfriend. I didn't want to get him in trouble. And back then, I certainly didn't feel like there was someone at school that I could talk to about this, a teacher or a counselor. We just didn't have that type of environment in my school. So I kept this to myself. And in my heart, I truly believe that I was alone. And I share all of this to bring us to prevalence. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what abuse actually is, but let's just for a second talk about how common this is. Now, despite the fact that we want to believe that abuse and unhealthy dating relationships and even domestic violence is an adult issue, in fact, teens and young adults experience abuse at higher rates than any other demographic. In the United States, 1 in 3 teenagers will experience some form of abuse by a dating partner before they turn the age of 18. Now, notice that I said 1 in 3 teenagers. I am not just talking about a specific gender. I'm not just talking about girls. I am talking about all teens. All teens are at risk no matter what their gender is, their gender identity, their background, their religion, their race. These issues impact all teens. And I can share that today because not only am I a survivor, but I'm now a subject matter expert in this issue, and I speak in schools all across the US. These issues are not just in the textbooks and within the research as impacting all students, but I get these stories from students in my own work on a weekly basis. And when we're talking about abuse, essentially all we're discussing is a relationship where one partner tends to maintain a sense of power and control. They kind of have certain behaviors and actions that give them more power in the relationship. And when we're talking about something like abuse, I think it's very common for most people to think of physical harm. When I was a teenager, that's what I thought abuse was. It was when someone physically hurt you. I was not experiencing that, so this must be something else. However, when it comes to teens and young adults, emotional abuse is the most common. And despite what we might think, it is also among the most damaging. Emotional abuse shows up when one partner is maintaining that power and control, but a lot of that is coming from a place of jealousy and possessiveness and insecurity. And while I don't want to make this the longest video in the world, I could teach a whole course on this. I will give you just a few examples of how emotional abuse shows up in teenage relationships. But really quickly before I get to that, let me make it abundantly clear that no relationship starts off abusive. All relationships start off seeming healthy, seeming exciting, and in fact, in many cases, the beginning feels too good to be true. This is a period of intensity. It's sometimes called love bombing, where the relationship feels amazing. The abusive behaviors start to show up a little bit later once there's already an investment in the relationship, and that's also part of what makes it pretty confusing because it's such a departure from the person you know and met and fell head over heels in love with. So the beginning is usually great. But this is why it's important that teens know what to look out for when things start to change. This is why it's important for parents to know what to look out for, because usually it happens a little bit down the road. So, what do those behaviors look like? I'm going to give you 4. The first one that shows up really often is isolation. This would be a partner who tries to spend all of their time with the person that they're dating, to the point where they will actually try to isolate and almost exclude them from their friends, their families, their extracurriculars, their hobbies, their interests, because to that abusive partner, those are all perceived as threats to the relationship. So you might notice that your child isn't really hanging out with their friends as much, or maybe even hesitates to respond to their friends, but yet is very quick to respond to their partner at all times. So isolation is the first red flag. The second way that abuse shows up, emotional abuse, is control. And control is not always as obvious as a partner saying, you're not allowed to do A, B, C. Control can be really subtle. This might be, again, trying to control who someone spends their time with, what they wear, what extracurriculars they join. And also, technology has become a really big tool in this whole space. So, for example, an abusive partner might demand access to your phone, your social media passwords. Many teens today are almost beginning to normalize the idea of sharing your locations the second you're in a dating relationship with someone. And partners who are abusive and insecure will often ask for constant proof. Take a photo, show me who you're with, show me where you are. They may even call and text excessively and get upset and cause arguments if their partner doesn't answer right away. And how this kind of unfolds is that eventually a teen will start to feel like they are walking on eggshells because they will start to filter their choices and their decisions and their actions through how their partner might respond. So control can be subtle and small, but eventually it just snowballs and takes over a young person's life. The third way that abuse shows up is through manipulation. Now, this is where an abusive partner will almost use words as weapons. So they will say things that are hurtful. They will make insults. They will criticize, belittle, and demean someone so that their self-esteem starts to dip a little bit. They may even do things like cause guilt trips, where they make a mistake, but then they make it seem like it's their partner's fault, or they will shift the blame or minimize their behaviors. And another way that they will do this is they will kind of twist the facts. These mind games become so confusing for a teenager that your teen might feel like they're losing their mind. They're losing grip on reality. And so manipulation is a really, really big factor when it comes to emotional and psychological abuse. And then the fourth big sign is extreme mood swings and threats. Now, not every day is bad. Some days feel amazing. It's why many teens stay in relationships like this. It's why many people stay in relationships like this. But an individual who is abusive will switch from pleasant to horrible within seconds, sometimes without any warning. And when they do switch, it's often extreme. It's a sudden accusation, a door slam, they're driving the car erratically, they're giving the cold shoulder, they've disappeared. And usually when there's arguments, they're not just typical arguments, they are volatile. There's extreme threats. It's not just a disagreement, it's threats to break things, to hurt someone or something, or in many cases, the abusive teen will threaten that they will hurt themselves. This comes up really often when a teen is trying to break the relationship off. And these four things that we've just mentioned, isolation, control, manipulation, and extreme mood swings and threats, these happen in a cycle. So like I said, not all days are bad, but these behaviors start to form the foundation of this relationship. And when a teen is experiencing that, it is damaging. Not only is it stressful and exhausting, but it also is directly linked to countless other secondary struggles. This is not just my opinion. This is not just my experience or derived from my story. This has been found in endless research that is linked domestic violence, dating abuse, intimate partner violence, relationship violence, whatever you want to call it, to academic struggles, mental health struggles, substance use and substance abuse, addiction, eating disorders. Teens will struggle with their self-esteem and their self-concept, and it makes it almost impossible for them to follow their own path and to take agency over their life and stay focused on their own goals, because this type of relationship is all-consuming. And so, this is kind of summarizing quite a complex issue, but what I want to make clear is the fact that everything we're discussing, everything I just shared with you, is incredibly common among young relationships. Not only is abuse prevalent in this age range, but also it makes sense. Young people are new to dating, they don't know the difference between healthy and unhealthy, and so they're kind of learning through trial and error. However, the teenage years are so formative and important for that individual to develop their identity and their direction in life, which is why it's critical that we make sure we're teaching our children, our teens, our soon-to-be teens, what a healthy relationship is, so that something like a relationship doesn't hurt them, harm them, or at the very least, derail them from their goals and their path in life. So, being aware is step one. Just simply sitting on this call for the last so many minutes already makes you so much more informed as a parent. This is so powerful. I'm hopeful knowing that you even heard just that. But I want to give you just a few more specific red flags that you can look out for. Because, like I said, my parents made the mistake of seeing my behaviors as rebelliousness and difficulty, and I was being disappointing. However, all of it was really a cry for help. Now, I mentioned that I created this free ebook. You can see it right there. Parents Guide to Safe Dating, with some tips in there on how to talk about dating so that your kids don't roll their eyes, some really practical advice. But I want to read to you from page 6 on some specific red flags that you might be able to look out for. So let's talk about a few red flags that you might notice in your teen's partner's behavior. So, their partner might monitor them online or look through their phone, want to spend every second with them. They might expect them to be available and responsive 24/7. They might show signs of jealousy and insecurity, but they call it love. They exhibit these sudden anger and mood swings. They make constant accusations, including of cheating. They seem to control all of your child's decisions. They may distract or pull them from their extracurriculars, make them feel like they are walking on eggshells, hurt them in anger, for example, pushing or restraining, and make threats to hurt or kill themselves. Many of those which we've discussed, but a great summary to really think about who your teen is in a relationship with. And here's a few red flags that you might notice in your teen specifically. Perhaps your teen isn't their usual self. Uncharacteristic behavior, moods, those are things to pay attention to. Perhaps your teen no longer hangs out with friends or family, and this is at the same time that a relationship has started. We know teens don't always want to hang with their families, but when there's a new relationship in place, we just want to make sure that that's not a contributing factor. Your teen might check their phone anxiously. They might become defensive and secretive about their relationship. They might seem withdrawn, stressed, or unmotivated. They may be suddenly struggling with their school and grades. You might notice some eating, hygiene, or appearance changes in how they present themselves. And of course, they may have some unexplained bruises or other marks. But one thing that I always like to encourage parents to do is to trust your gut. Anytime you have even the slightest thought that maybe something is off with your teen, default to checking in. Not everything is just typical teenage behavior. Often it's stemming from something in their personal lives, and more often than not, those personal issues are interpersonally related. So it might have something to do with their dating partner, a crush, their peers, their friend group, friend drama, online bullying. These interpersonal issues happen so frequently, which is why parents need to be extra cognizant of paying attention and checking in. Now, if you feel like your teen is in a relationship and you have some concerns, there are ways that you can approach them that will be more effective. You want to make sure that you approach them without judgment, with genuine concern, compassion, and give them a chance to speak. They may not always open up to you, but by simply reinforcing that message, repeatedly checking in, this can really be powerful. You want to let your child know that they can talk to you. It likely will take a few attempts before they open up, but it's important that you do check in. Now, if they do open up, it's important that you, again, give them the space just to talk, not judge them, not reprimand them, leave any possible punishments for broken rules out of the question. And then if it seems like there's some abuse, also enlist the help of a specialist. You might talk to a counselor at school or a therapist, because determining next steps, whether that's, simply supporting your child or helping them to break up, you want to make sure that you do that safely. And there's some really specific directions on how to do this if you download the free guide below. So I'll save us some time and you can just go look and you can read that. But of course, what we really want to do is hopefully prevent these issues from ever happening. So, how can you, as a parent, foster and teach healthy relationships to your teen? Well, here's a few ways. So, first and foremost, you can, of course, role model healthy relationship behaviors in your own relationships. You can do this with your current partner, your current spouse, making sure that you are embodying all of the qualities of respect, communication, accountability, equality, so that your child sees this as a healthy, aspirational vision of what a relationship should look like. So that's step one. Step two is find ways to talk about healthy relationships. It doesn't mean you have to sit down and have some serious dating talk. However, there's some tips on that in the guide. But it's really easy to use pop culture and media and song lyrics and movies and reality TV to have these conversations. Next time you're watching something together, if you know that your child likes a show, use that to have conversations. What do you think of what that character just did? Do you think that's healthy? Do you see things like that in relationships at your school? Just normalize conversations around relationships. It can be really helpful to shift the focus off of them and talk about their peers. So you might say things like, so, are any of your friends dating? What do you think of their relationships? Do you think they're healthy? Get them talking about other kids. And you've already done a big step. My third piece of advice is always to educate yourself on these issues. And you want to make sure that you also check in when you ever have any concerns. Anything that's uncharacteristic, make sure you check in. And I think just as a general piece of parenting advice, this to me is so important. And this is foundational for fostering lifelong trust so that your child comes to you with any concern. I think the more that you can build conversations, the more likely you will be able to have the tough ones. So anytime your child comes to you with even the smallest question, even the most trivial issue, it doesn't matter what age they are, turn that into a conversation longer than it even needs to be. Talk and ask questions and be curious. And the more that you talk about the little things at length and at depth and offer advice, they'll be more likely to come to you with the bigger things. So this is something that we can do in our every single day interactions, is foster those relationships. Now, to kind of go back to my story, unfortunately, my first high school relationship was not the only abusive relationship I was in. Because there was no intervention from my parents or from other adults, and because I never sought help, unfortunately, this marked the beginning of a 6-year cycle of abusive relationships. And these relationships became so damaging that by the time I was in college, I soon would find myself broke, homeless, and even dropping out of school. I had absolutely nothing left. However, eventually one day I would turn my life around, heal, recover, seek support, learn, and most importantly, get involved in advocacy and social change. I felt a sense of righteous indignation, so to speak, versus just pure anger, where I realized that what I had experienced that I thought was so unique to me was not unique at all. There were textbooks on these issues, there were bodies of research, and there were statistics that told me I was not alone at all. And very early on, I began getting involved with the anti-violence movement, and I began speaking and sharing my story. And as crazy as this journey has been, I've now been speaking for over 17 years. My full-time work today is traveling the country, speaking in schools, training educators, training youth-serving adults, and yes, speaking to parents as well. So, with that, I leave you with a few to-dos. One, if you found this video helpful, make sure you share it with someone else. If you want to learn even more and have some more tangible advice and things to look out for, definitely snag the free guide below and pass it along to your fellow friends and colleagues who are also parents. Two, if you feel like this is a valuable message, consider recommending me to your child's school. I am always open to visiting new communities, and I would love nothing more than to support your child and the students in your community. And 3, if you like this content, I hope you stick around. My goal is to use this stage as much as I do actual stages out in my travels to educate and raise awareness. So if you found this helpful, give it a like, give it a comment, let me know, and I will be sure to continue to add even more. Thanks so much for being here. I'm inspired and feel very hopeful just simply knowing that there is a parent out there or many parents who have simply taken a few minutes to learn about these issues. Being empowered is about being knowledgeable, and with this knowledge, you can make a significant impact in the life of your child. Thanks so much. I'm Ashley Bendixson. I'll see you soon.